Isabella had mastered the art of pretending. On social media, her friends saw smiling photos, coffee cups on busy mornings, and quotes about hard work. But what no one saw were the nights she went to bed with the lights off, not because she wanted peace, but because the electricity bill was overdue. Her fridge often held little more than a half-empty milk carton and leftovers from days before. She worked long hours at a clothing store, standing on her feet all day, only to come home too tired to cook, too drained to dream. Every month she told herself next month will be different, but the same cycle returned. Rent late, bills stacked, and a silent ache that whispered she was failing. Even joy became scarce, her laughter replaced by sighs that echoed through her small apartment. Her friends often said, "Bella, you just need to hustle harder." But she was already hustling until her body begged for rest, and still nothing changed. Deep down, she began to wonder if the problem wasn't her effort at all. Maybe it was something unseen, something silent, something that existed before she even opened her mouth to ask for more. And then came the night that shifted everything. The night Isabella discovered the invisible force that had been shaping her life all along. Her aura. What happened after that would not only shock her, but everyone around her. Stay with me, because this story may reveal why money has been slipping through your hands. And before we continue, subscribe now, because you don't want to miss stories like this. Stories that could change the way you see your future forever. Isabella's mornings always began with the same heavy rhythm. The hiss of the old radiator, the quick bite of stale bread, and the rush to catch the crowded bus. She blended in with the sea of commuters, but beneath her tired eyes lived the silent shame of scarcity. Her life wasn't collapsing, it was slowly suffocating her, one overdue bill at a time. At the retail store where she worked, Isabella's smile was painted on like makeup. She folded clothes under fluorescent lights while wealthy customers filled bags with items that cost more than her weekly pay. Every beep of the register cut deep, reminding her that she could sell abundance but never seemed to touch it herself. The contrast gnawed at her, feeding a quiet bitterness she didn't dare admit. At night, she returned to her one-bedroom apartment, walls marked with peeling paint and silence thick enough to drown her thoughts. Her neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, sometimes knocked just to share a kind word. "Bella, your time will come." Isabella would nod politely, but when the door closed, her heart sunk. Time didn't feel like hope. It felt like a thief, stealing her youth, one exhausted day at a time. And yet, deep in the shadows of her routine, she felt something strange she couldn't explain. It was as if an invisible hand was holding her back, sabotaging her every effort. She didn't know what it was, but she could feel it, surrounding her like a fog. What was this force she couldn't see but couldn't escape? That question began to haunt her, and soon it would lead her to a discovery that changed everything. One late evening after another grueling shift, Isabella missed her usual bus and decided to walk home. The city streets were nearly empty, neon lights flickering in the rain. She passed an old building she had never noticed before, its windows glowing with a warm amber light. Drawn by curiosity, she peeked inside and saw a small group of people sitting in silence, eyes closed, their breath steady, as if the chaos of the world couldn't touch them. She hesitated, but an older woman at the door gestured kindly. "You look tired, dear. Come in and rest for a moment." Isabella entered, unsure of what she was stepping into. The room was quiet, filled with the faint smell of sandalwood. No one spoke, yet the air felt alive, charged with something she couldn't explain. For the first time in years, she felt her shoulders drop, as if the invisible weight she carried loosened its grip. After a few minutes, the woman approached her again and whispered, "Your energy is heavy. Do you know what you're broadcasting?" The words struck her like thunder. Isabella stammered, "Broadcasting? I don't understand." The woman's gaze was steady. "What you feel most often is what the world responds to. Not your words, not your effort, your aura."
It was the first time Isabella had ever heard her life's failures explained with such piercing clarity. That night, as she lay in bed replaying the encounter, her mind wouldn't rest. She thought of every moment of fear, every apology for wanting more, every time she dimmed her light so others wouldn't feel small. Could it be that she was the one sending out signals of scarcity? The idea unsettled her deeply. If it were true, it meant she wasn't cursed at all. She was coded. And the real question was, did she have the power to rewrite that code? That night, Isabella's thoughts carried her back to the voices of her past. Her father's stern words echoed, "People like us will never be rich. Money only brings trouble." Her mother's silence about dreams, her teachers warning her to stay realistic, her friends joking, "Bella, don't fly too high, you'll fall." These weren't just memories. They were scars. Invisible scripts written on her soul, convincing her that lack was her destiny. She stared at the ceiling and asked herself, have I been living under a story that was never mine? Have I been rehearsing poverty without even realizing it? The questions burned inside her, awakening something she didn't know she had: defiance. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not of sadness this time, but of anger. She whispered, "No more. I can't keep wearing chains I didn't choose." The next day, while sitting on a park bench during her lunch break, she saw a young street artist sketching on scraps of paper. Curious, she asked, "Why do you draw every day?" The artist smiled, "Because every line I draw rewrites who I am. This is my proof that I don't have to stay the person I was yesterday." His words hit her like lightning. Could life really be rewritten, one deliberate act at a time? That night she journaled for the first time in years. Instead of listing problems, she wrote down every lie she had believed about money. "I don't deserve it. It's dangerous. It will slip away." Then with trembling hands, she crossed them all one by one. As she did, a new question rose in her spirit, one that would haunt and guide her. If I can rewrite lies on paper, can I also rewrite them in my aura?
The words of the older woman wouldn't leave Isabella's mind. What you feel most often is what the world responds to. She replayed them on the bus, at work, even while brushing her teeth at night. It was as if her soul knew those words carried the key she had been missing. But how could she change feelings so deeply rooted in her bones? That question both haunted her and gave her hope. Hungry for answers, Isabella returned to that quiet gathering space. This time, instead of only observing, she asked questions. One woman handed her a worn sheet of paper with 3 simple practices. Breathe deeply every morning, speak words of worth out loud, and picture yourself already living the life you desire. It sounded too simple to change anything, but at that point, simple was all she could handle. That night, she lit the only candle left in her drawer and whispered into the stillness, "I am safe. I am worthy. I am open to abundance." At first, her voice shook, and she almost laughed at herself. But as the words repeated, something unexpected happened. Her chest loosened, her tears fell, and for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of peace. It wasn't wealth yet, but it was wealth's shadow, hope. She began writing too, pouring fears onto the page. "I don't deserve more. I will lose it if it comes." Then she struck them out, rewriting in bold letters, "I am wealth in motion. I can be trusted with more." Each word felt like rebellion against the lies of her past. Still, a nagging doubt whispered, "Is this real, or am I just playing pretend?" She had no idea that these fragile practices, repeated daily, would soon collide with life's hardest tests, revealing whether her aura was truly shifting or if it was all an illusion. As Isabella practiced her new rituals, she began noticing something she had ignored for years. The people and places around her carried their own signals. At work, her coworkers complained constantly about money, repeating phrases like, "We'll always be broke here," and "rich people are all corrupt." She realized she had been soaking in those words like poison,
letting them confirm her deepest fears without even noticing. Her evenings weren't much different. The television blared with news of crises, debts, and failures. On social media, her feed overflowed with negativity, envy, and judgment. Isabella paused one night and whispered to herself, "How can I build an aura of abundance if I keep surrounding myself with scarcity?" The truth stung, but it was undeniable. Her environment was training her just as much as her thoughts were. So, she made changes. She muted toxic accounts online, stopped watching news before bed, and even began spending less time with friends who drained her energy with constant gossip. Instead, she filled her small apartment with symbols of the life she wanted: a vision board taped above her desk, sticky notes with affirmations on her mirror, and playlists that lifted her spirit. Slowly, her home became a sanctuary instead of a prison. It wasn't easy. Sometimes loneliness crept in, and she missed the comfort of familiar voices, even the negative ones. But each time doubt whispered, she reminded herself, "My aura is worth protecting." And as her surroundings shifted, so did her inner world. She found herself walking with more confidence, speaking with more courage, and even smiling at strangers, as if she carried a new secret no one else could see. And if you're listening to Isabella's story right now, I want you to pause for a moment. Isn't it true that your environment is shaping you too? Maybe it's time to guard your own aura. And if this chapter has stirred something inside you, take a moment to like this story. It may seem like a small act, but it tells the world you're choosing to align with growth instead of lack. Because just like Isabella, every step you take to protect your energy rewrites your future. Just when Isabella began to feel lighter, as if her life was finally shifting, the storm arrived. One Friday evening, her manager called her into the office. With a stiff expression, he said, "We're cutting hours. Starting next week, you'll be down to part-time." Her heart sank. For years, bad news had always confirmed the voice of scarcity inside her, and now it returned like a punch to the stomach. She walked home under a gray sky, the city lights blurry through her tears. The old Isabella would have collapsed, repeating, "See, nothing ever works out for me." And for a moment, that voice did come back, tempting her to give in. She clenched her fists, asking herself, "Am I really strong enough to face this, or am I just pretending with affirmations and candles?" At home, she lit the small candle again, the same one she had used when she began her new rituals. She closed her eyes and remembered the woman's words. "What you feel most often is what the world responds to." She inhaled deeply, fighting the urge to panic. Then she whispered, "I am safe, I am worthy, I am open to abundance." Her voice trembled, but she refused to stop. This wasn't about words anymore. It was about choosing a new default in the middle of chaos. The weekend passed slowly. Bills still waited on the table, and uncertainty still pressed heavily against her chest. Yet she noticed something different. Her body didn't collapse the way it used to. Instead of drowning in fear, she felt a quiet strength growing inside her. The test hadn't broken her. It had revealed to her that she was no longer the same. For the first time, Isabella believed she could hold her ground even when the storm hit. But little did she know, this was only the beginning, because the moment you decide to change your aura, life doesn't just test you once. It asks, are you ready to live as the person you've declared to be? And Isabella's answer to that question would soon unlock a door she never expected to open.
Days after the storm of losing hours at work, Isabella walked into her shift with a calm she had never felt before. Instead of hiding behind fear, she carried herself differently. Shoulders lifted, eyes steady, voice firm. Customers noticed. One woman, impressed by her warmth and confidence, asked, "Have you ever thought of working in sales? People would trust you instantly." The comment lingered in Isabella's heart, like a seed of possibility. Later that week, while journaling at a cafe, a stranger overheard her encouraging another young woman who was struggling. He leaned over and said, "You speak with conviction. I run a small business. We need someone exactly like you to connect with our clients." Isabella almost laughed, remembering how invisible she once felt. Now, opportunities were finding her without her chasing them. Her aura began to precede her. Neighbors who once ignored her now greeted her warmly. Friends she hadn't heard from in years suddenly called, curious about the energy she carried. Even at the store, her manager, who had cut her hours, remarked, "I don't know what's different about you, but customers keep asking for your help. You're valuable here." For the first time, Isabella realized she was no longer begging for recognition. She was attracting it. She wrote in her journal one evening, "Wealth is not just money, it's confidence, opportunity, and alignment. And when I shifted inside, the outside had no choice but to follow." Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Her life hadn't magically solved itself, but the doors that once slammed shut were now opening without her even knocking. Yet deep inside, Isabella knew this was more than just chance. Something profound was happening, something bigger than promotions or paychecks. She wasn't only attracting wealth, she was becoming wealth. And the moment that realization sank in, she understood this was only the beginning of a much greater journey. 1 month later, Isabella received a letter in the mail that made her heart stop. It was from the local community center where she had first stepped in out of the rain weeks ago. They were offering her a position, not as a volunteer, but as a paid coordinator to help lead workshops on confidence and personal growth. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Me? Teaching others? I'm barely holding myself together. But the director told her, "People feel something different when you walk into a room. That's what we need." Her first day leading a small group, she was terrified. She stared at the circle of strangers waiting for her to speak, hands trembling. But then she remembered the candle, the affirmations, and the breath that once steadied her in the dark. She looked up and said softly, "You don't attract what you chase. You attract what you are." And the room grew still. Faces lifted. And for the first time, Isabella saw the power of her new aura not just changing her life, but sparking transformation in others. Soon, the ripple grew wider. The business owner who had approached her at the cafe gave her a part-time role as a client liaison. Opportunities she never imagined kept showing up. Collaborations, invitations, even financial blessings that seemed to appear out of nowhere. But more than the money, it was the way people responded to her presence that shocked her most. They trusted her. They followed her lead. They wanted what she carried. One evening, as she walked home through the same streets where she once felt invisible, she caught her reflection in a store window. She hardly recognized herself. Shoulders straight, eyes bright, a quiet confidence radiating outward. For the first time, she whispered, "I am not the same woman who begged life to notice me. I am the woman life now chases." And in that moment, she knew the real wealth wasn't just in her bank account. It was in who she had become. And yet, this was only the beginning, because when you shift your aura, the world doesn't just change how it sees you, it changes how it delivers opportunities to you. What Isabella experienced was rare, but it's also possible for anyone willing to rewrite their inner story. The question is, will you dare to start? Isabella's story reminds us of a truth most people never hear. Wealth doesn't begin in a paycheck, a job, or an opportunity. It begins in the invisible signal you broadcast every day.
She didn't just change her schedule, she changed her aura. And when her aura shifted, life had no choice but to respond. Think about it. How many times have you felt stuck chasing opportunities that slipped through your fingers? How many nights have you whispered to yourself, "Why does it feel like life is always one step ahead of me?" Isabella once carried those same questions, the same doubts. But when she decided to rewrite her inner story, the world began to rewrite her outer reality. The truth is simple yet powerful. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And if Isabella, a woman once buried in bills, shame, and fear, could train her aura to magnetize abundance, so can you. Her story is proof that transformation isn't reserved for the lucky, it's available to the willing. So now I ask you, what signal are you sending? What story are you broadcasting with your aura today? If Isabella could step into the light of abundance, you can too. And if this story inspired you, take a moment right now. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss the stories that could change your future. And write in the comments these words, "I am wealth in motion." Let that declaration be your first act of training your own aura.